All right, y'all. Thank you so much for joining us today, our awesome panelists, and to everybody who is on YouTube streaming through this conference. It has been an amazing day with amazing conversations that I'm just so grateful to be able to listen into, and I'm so grateful for the students to be able to have their moment to talk as well. So first, I want to, of course, introduce our panel. So I want everybody, I'll let you introduce yourselves and talk about the organizations that you're representing and your what led you to that position at Kennesaw. But let's start with artists. In my head, I want to go alphabetical order, but I think I'm going to mess that up. So we'll start with artists. No, easy can say.
I gotcha. Thanks, Madison. Hi, everyone. My name is Artist Trice. I'm a fourth-year geography major, and I am the president of the Caribbean Student Association here at Kennesaw. I have a few other positions on campus, but I'm also part of the Spanish Club. Linnea is going to talk about that a little bit later. But I have been involved in the Caribbean Student Association for about 3 years now, since I was a freshman. And I've really enjoyed being in a space where I'm able to be in community with my Caribbean American peers and just be able to have a space where we're able to fellowship together.
Thank you, artists. Next, let's go to, I think, Earl. I feel like that's, I hope I'm doing this alphabetical thing right, but go ahead.
So one of the things that made me join DBG, I've been involved since I transferred back in 2018, I believe it was. And honestly, it was just, it was, to me, it meant a lot to find a place where I could be Black and feel like myself, amongst a sea of other. So it just felt, I was looking for a place where I could feel at home, a place where I could just, shed my skin and just be me. And that's what DBG has. That's what it's presented for me, and that's what I try to present to everyone who comes in contact with it nowadays.
Thank you, Earl. And to those who don't know, DBG is Distinguished Black Gentlemen on our campus here at Kennesaw. Next, let's get to Linnea. Y'all, if I'm doing this wrong, just forgive me.
No, you've been doing good. You've been keeping up with the alphabetical order so far. But hello, everyone. And I'm the president of the Spanish Club, along with my co-president, Artist. He's a part of Caribsa as well. Something that led me into the Spanish Club is I just developed a really good relationship with one of my Spanish teachers. And it was actually in her class that I was able to see not just the language side of Spanish, but the culture side of Spanish as well. I was able to see myself reflected in that there is a space for me being Black in Spanish. I didn't even understand the whole concept of what it meant to be Afro-Latin or how it intersects. And so she asked me to be a part of the Spanish Club, and I was able to link with some other peers who were kind of like me. And together we've been putting on different events and just we've been able to grow in our language journeys. We've been able to grow in our relationships with each other, and we've been able to grow as individuals. So it's been an amazing place. We just want to offer a safe space for people of all levels to kind of enhance their Spanish speaking journey. So that's just a little bit about me and our club.
Thank you, Linnea. I'm so excited to hear your contributions to this conversation. We'll go to Quincy next, and I'll round this off.
All right. How's everybody doing? My name is Quincy Jean-Louis, and I am the co-president of KS United. And we pride ourselves on being a really progressive organization on campus. And what really drove me to the organization, which was pretty recent actually, because I didn't join until last summer. I just felt like it was a group that I'd been keeping track of even before I was able to get onto campus, beginning with the Take a Knee movement and everything else that has gone on since then. And I really feel like this is a place where we welcome everybody, even within and outside of the Black community, but really a group where we talk about intersectional identities and just advocating for everybody that needs a voice on campus. So that's really what drove me to KS United. Also similarly drove me to the AADS department as well. So all of these things are related, and I am so happy to be here today.
Thank you, Quincy. Next, Amy, you just joined in. Glad you were able to click in with us. I was just having everybody introduce themselves and talk about their position within the organization that they're representing, as well as what brought them to that organization as well.
Hi, everyone. My name is Amy, and I am president of Ladies of Distinction on campus. So pretty much what drew me to Ladies of Distinction, I wasn't involved on campus whatsoever when I first transferred here back in 2017. And the few people that I did meet, they left a good impression, their first good impression on me, honestly. And they were just really close friends of mine who kept encouraging me to come out. I finally did, and I just loved everything that, we stood for, what we were about, what we still stand for, as far as just bonding and trying to create lifelong friendships and unity among all college women and other organizations as well as giving back to the community. So I really did enjoy doing that, and I have a lot of memories with Ladies of Distinction. Can't wait to finish out the rest, but that's what drew me, was the bonds, the friendship, and giving back.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you for being here tonight. I'll go last, and I'm hoping I introduced myself in the beginning, but if I didn't, I'm Madison Potts, and I'm president of the KSU NAACP. And I'm going to be kind of serving as our moderator and host for it this evening. What drew me to the NAACP is I have always been very social justice and advocacy minded. I've always kind of looked for where to plug in on whatever campus it was that I was at. Prior to being at Kennesaw State, I was at Chattahoochee Tech. And I served in SGA, but I was like, how do I fill this bug of mine? So I ended up being a part of the National Action Network at Spelman and Morehouse, that chapter. I'm just looking for involvement. And coming to Kennesaw, I was like, okay, now where is this social justice group? And I found NAACP and KS United. So that's where I started, really, in KS United. And I joined as a member of NAACP as well. And I've just really loved my journey with this organization. It's been completely life-changing, to be quite honest, and really just serving as a space for young activists and organizers to be able to be themselves and push for the causes that are important to them on campus and beyond. And so, as you all have said in your experiences with your organizations, I think I've been to at least one meeting of everybody's except for Calypso, which I'm embarrassed about. So I need to do better. The DBG, Spanish Club, LOD, KS United, you guys all have a special place in my heart. So serious. I really, really enjoy going to your meetings and y'all's leadership style. So I'm just proud of you guys and what you've been able to do thus far in your time on Kennesaw campus. So I say we hop on into our discussion. And I want to ask you guys, we don't have to go in a particular order, but what really do you want your organization to contribute to the betterment of this campus? And being Black leaders on Kennesaw campus, we already know that that's a unique experience. We know it comes with complexities and really just a lot to overcome, if we're being honest. And especially as leaders, it can be difficult. But with your organizations, you each hold unique perspectives and unique contexts as entities in itself. So what is it that you want your specific organizations to contribute to the betterment of KSU? Ooh, y'all.
Hey, I'll go ahead and I'll just start. One of the things that I want for DBG to really contribute to KSU and BKSU as well is, like I said earlier, a home to be yourself, a place to where, especially freshmen coming in, they're usually leaving something familiar, and it can be scary jumping into college and university, 17, 18, 19 years old. So for me, honestly, I just always want to create that comfort space, that safe haven for Black students and Black male students, especially, to just feel like, hey, you can shed your skin and be in here and just be you. We can, especially at our general body meetings, we can talk however we want to talk, and just have that amount of fellowship that is sometimes hard to get, that makes you feel comfortable where you're at, as well as bring Black culture to the broader aspects of KSU, with some of our bigger events like My Black Is.
I'll piggyback off of Earl, and that we want Caribsa, just like any cultural organization, to be a space for people who identify within that culture to be comfortable, to come to see people who look like them or who have similar experiences as they do. But we also want to be able to make sure that people who want to learn about anything that we have to offer, that knowledge is accessible and tangible in a way that they can come, learn, and grow with us, right? So the Caribbean is a very unique and diverse place, and a lot of people may just associate it with Jamaica, which, in my opinion, is the best country in the Caribbean. No bias. But, we really want to be able to showcase other people's cultures and countries as they deserve to be shown. So to be able to contribute more knowledge to the student population in general is something that we really are striving to do. Of course, this can be done through different events, different meetings, and just having a presence on campus. So we're really fortunate to be in a position where we can advocate and share our culture with other people. So that's something that we're happy to do, and always looking forward for opportunities to enhance that.
Somebody else gonna go first? You sure? Okay. So just to piggyback off of that, I definitely agree in terms of what, I want KS United to contribute to the campus, but I also feel like for us specifically, we want to work with everybody, but also leave a legacy. And maybe not just in terms of like an individual perspective, but a legacy in terms of who we are and who we stand for, in a way that makes the name and our culture transcend us as students. We want this to be something that's going to last for years after we're gone, because we know these problems are always going to be here. So I think for us, it's really about creating a culture, because we're not, specifically a cultured organization in regards of being necessarily a Black organization. But what is important about Black involvement with KS United is that this proves that we belong in every seat when it comes to social justice. So even if it's not designated specifically for Black Americans and Black individuals, we have identities within every social justice movement. So when I talk about legacy, I want that, to be always entrenched in KSU history. Working with everybody on this panel, working with people outside of this panel, just to make sure that we have students, like which was previously stated, for incoming freshmen, knowing that they will have a place, whether it is in our organization or any of the other organizations that do similar work. Just leave a legacy that makes sure that everybody knows that they will be accepted no matter what their identity is.
I'll say if anybody else was going to go. Okay, so for our organization, Ladies of Distinction is just that right there. I kind of want to remind and teach our young college women what it is to be like a lady of distinction, how to carry yourself, just takeaways that can really carry you throughout the rest of your life when it comes to business settings or social settings, relationship settings, even just settings about self-love and self-care. But not only that, I really, really am encouraging our girls this year, more than anything, is to just uplift each other, because it can, females kind of have a competitive natural state, I would say. And I just kind of want to encourage especially us Black women, to just always be there for each other, always encourage each other, always know that there's enough room at the table for everybody to eat. And we shouldn't be tearing each other down, to try to uplift yourself or uplift your group of friends just by tearing other women down. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't have to. And, us coming together as a whole can really make a bigger and better difference rather than splitting off trying to be better than the next person.
Awesome. So something about our organization is that we're really about understanding each other and understanding culture as a whole. And I think that in order to, get along and create this big interconnected world, you have to know people and you have to embrace their differences. You can't go throughout life saying, well, all that stuff doesn't matter to me, because that's kind of what makes people unique. So something at KSU is we want to make a safe space for people to be able to learn about another culture and to be confident and proud and embrace their own in a place where it's not making them seem like they're being boastful or too proud. Because I feel like sometimes people of color, when they make proud statements and declarations of who they are, that's not something that's really embraced by society. So we just want to bring that caring and nurturing of who you are as an individual to the campus, and provide a space to do just that.
Well, I think all of you gave amazing answers, and they speak to exactly why you're here right now and the type of impact that your organizations are having on campus, and how important it is that really when we get into these leadership positions that we pay attention to our influence, that we're paying attention to. I don't know if everybody could see me because my screen just went and took all my guests away, but I'm just going to keep talking. I hope you can still hear me. But that we're just paying attention to our influence, and we're paying attention to our impact on campus and being intentional about that. In terms of me with the Kennesaw State NAACP, what was so important to me was to make sure that we created a space for students to really learn how to be civically engaged and to be young organizers and young activists, and to not be afraid to say and speak up on when something is going on in their community, whether that be on campus or whether that be in the city of Kennesaw or in the Cobb County specifically. It was important to me through my just my leadership in Kennesaw and just my experiences, especially in starting off as a member with the NAACP, then moving up to vice president and now my presidency. I just wanted everybody to know that you don't have to wait for somebody to do something. You don't have to wait for somebody to decide that maybe we should change this problem we're seeing locally or on campus. You don't have to just sit around and think about it and hope that eventually there will be some change that we're going to see. You can go be it. You can decide that we're going to register students to vote. We can decide ourselves as young people that we're going to stand up for things that we believe in and advocate for the marginalized and oppressed groups that are in our local community. So it was just important to me to contribute to the betterment of this campus, that there is a space where advocacy is a verb truly, and not just something that we post on hashtags and on our stories. And that's important. That's great as well. But it should be just an advertisement for the movement that's actually taking place and the actions that we're actually taking to be sure that we are being the change that we want to see on our campus. So that was what was important to me, especially in contributing to this organization, and how our ripple effect really happens on campus when you see members of the KSU NAACP. So the next question is really kind of like a continuation of what we were just talking about. And what are we going to do about it? What are we going to do about our initiatives, about the change that we want to see? What are some ways that you guys feel in your time as leaders that you've been able to execute on either your goals, your mission, successful events. Like, let's just talk about some of the things that have worked and some of the things that maybe it was like, okay, we could have done that better. But especially in COVID time, we have lessons that we can learn and ways to be more effective. And I know that for sure, for me at least. But so what are some of the ways that we're even going about this? What has worked? What hasn't? What are y'all's thoughts?
I guess I can go. So I think one of my favorite Spanish club events that we had this year was actually one of our first events. No one knew what to predict. Over the summer we planned so much, but due to COVID, we had to make so many changes. But one thing we wanted to do was emphasize how we're still going to be there for our members. We're still going to do things that make them feel included and still give them that important sense of community. So what we did is we came up with a virtual giveaway, but half of it was in person and the other half was virtual. And so we came up with these goodie bags. We stood on the green and we distributed them all throughout the campus. And it was really nice because it uplifted people's spirits. They were able to see who we are. And then when they were able to tune in to the virtual event, it was like we had so much fun. We listened to music together. We did bonding activities together. And I think that really just set the tone to what we were about, and just reflected some of our goals and some of our missions. So, yeah.
To piggyback off Lynette, I think definitely in COVID times, a lot of events, what we've had to really learn is how to do the in-person / virtual. We've had to do a lot better at that. One of the things that I know DBG kind of tried to utilize often was just the use of Instagram and just and social media and GroupMe. Like, we have GroupMes and nowadays, because we can't meet all the time, but we, same as she's saying, we want to keep that feel of community. We'll have random polls in the GroupMe, just like whatever's going on in the culture that we just want to talk about. For a lot of Black males, I know you guys are familiar with the idea of, talking at the barbershop and just some of those types of conversations and all the great debates that happen while you're sitting in the chair getting a lineup. Like, we've tried to bring that aspect of Black male culture just to a GroupMe, just to a space to where, we may not be able to meet in person, but we're still able to have these hard hitting, like super, super important debates about who's the greatest basketball player of all time, whether it be Michael or Kobe or LeBron. Like, that for us, that it meant a lot because we were just able to talk and just, fellowship and bring everyone together, even though we're all in these separate spaces. So just, utilizing social media, that has been huge for us this semester.
I will piggyback off of Earl. Social media has definitely been like a game changer. Just, like he said, putting up polls for us personally, just to see like what time, what days, what events might work for them, for like our members. But one major thing that I decided to do when I knew I was taking on my position as president was I created this series titled Like a Lady. So I have like this 4-segment series of where we just kind of teach girls the differences in, like, I guess, etiquette. Like, we have an etiquette class coming up this Friday, tomorrow, actually, which was actually inspired by AAMI. I enjoyed their etiquette class when I went there, as well as just teaching them how to dress, different categories, casual, business casual, professional, business professional, how you should wear your hair, just things that girls should know. Everybody should know, but females in particular, just because the workforce is still a little bit harder on us than they would be a male. I just want to make sure the girls take away things that can carry them out into their careers, so that they know and that they've done everything they've needed to do, or they've come like 100% prepared in all aspects of life, physically, mentally, emotionally, building resumes, just making sure that they have everything they need to go out into the world and just tackle anything that they can. So if something doesn't work, for them and everything, they know that they've done everything that they could do. And doing all of this while trying to just, create bonds and friendships and just uplift each other and fellowship. As she said, fellowship is so important. That's exactly what we're trying to do. And I feel like that has worked for us more than anything. The bonding events, whether it was skating, bowling, they seem to absolutely love that. It kind of just gets their mind off of things and reminds them, of times when COVID wasn't here. Of course, we're still being safe and, taking our precautions. But, I think the bonding events especially has just done wonders for everyone mentally during these times.
So for us, I think it's been very interesting because, like I said, I joined beginning this summer. And I think that coincided with a lot of, between the protests and, I don't think any of us at the beginning of the pandemic anticipated this thing lasting over a year. So the longer we were, quarantined or whatever and dealing with those protests, and for me personally, I was out there sometimes 3-4 times a week. And so were some of the other members of the organization. I think the first takeaway that we had was to pace ourselves. Because we had been, even outside of the organization, protesting in a lot of different spaces. And, once the fall started, after we'd done, a summer of planning, we tried to do the same things. But I think we all realized that people were exhausted, like mentally, physically, emotionally exhausted. So not only pacing yourselves, but one thing that we did, I believe last month, was we had a movie night. We streamed I Am Not Your Negro. And not only does that help with the exhaustion that I feel like we all had, but we also invited everybody from campus, to have an opportunity to come out, get some food, watch the movie. And one thing that I realized, as well as other members of the organization, including the other co-president, Galena Vaughn, was that one thing we can also do, also in regards to the pandemic as well, and angling it in that way, is making sure that people understand that we're accessible. Like, these events, these organizations, us as an organization, activism is accessible. It is not something that is, not that you have to be a certain kind of person to do. We had people after the movie night saying, hey, I really want to be a part of the organization, but I've never been in activist spaces before, or I don't know how to be an activist, or I don't know any of these other things. And one thing we realized was that's okay, because a lot of us, before we joined this organization, didn't know that either. So creating spaces for people to feel welcomed and feel like activism is not something that's out of reach for them is something that I think we've definitely learned over the past year, few months or so.
I'll echo what everyone has said because everyone's brought up really incredible points. For Carypsa, this year has been really different, as I know it's been for a lot of other organizations, right? Some things that we've done in the past are really big events. Like, for example, we usually have an event where we would be showcasing Caribbean dances, practicing it, having a routine. It's kind of like a workout. We call it a fete, like a party in the Caribbean. So we call it fetness instead of fitness. And things like that we would typically have in the past. We'd promo it, and then have it on campus. This year, things look really different holding events on campus. And a big part of how our community comes together is physically being together. So being in a virtual space, while I know that a lot of people have had a lot of success with social media and creating those areas where people are able to still be in contact with each other has been successful, for us, it's been a little bit more of a challenge. So that's definitely something that we're taking into consideration for the next few events and the next few months as we're planning to end out the semester, that's been something that hasn't worked as strong for us. But what has been working is trying to build up individual connections with members who have come in the past. We're still trying to build up our member base again. You know, this year is difficult in that recruitment has been something that's been really formed a challenge, particularly with first years and second years who are just coming or transferring into Kennesaw. There are a lot of Caribbean and Caribbean American people within Cobb, and we don't know where they are until they find us, which is something that we're trying to address in a specific way. But to create that space and visibility where people can say, oh, we have a Caribbean Student Association, is something that we're still trying to develop that special sauce and that formula for. It's been a little bit difficult. So trying to work together within some of our other connections with other organizations, and then to build up within our executive board to see how we can really create that space that people know we're here for them and to support their journey throughout university.
Phenomenal answers, y'all. Thank you. I think there are little nuggets that we can take away from each person as leaders, even as we're listening. That's helpful to even our own organizations and figuring out like next steps and like, okay, that was a cool idea. I can implement that maybe next time. But as Artist said, I think that secret sauce of like meeting the people where they're at or finding them and letting them know that we're here is like complicated. In a panoramic, as the young people say, and we're trying to figure it out. But it's more difficult when you have to book a room and be aware of the capacity. It's more difficult when virtual platforms don't always get the same level of connection as we typically would under different circumstances. And it's just so much more to think about now versus just like, okay, I have this idea, let me go do it. Okay, I have this idea. How do I do this in a way that's like meets all the COVID guidelines and allows for people to feel connected and gets the message across, but this can't feel like a lecture. Are they engaged? Like all those little things that I know y'all know. It comes with being a student leader and maintaining the presence and membership at our organizations. It's hard sometimes, but I'm glad we're in this space even to be there for each other and to be honest and vulnerable about it not being just an exact science for every single event. Sometimes we got to really think about and adjust while we're there, even how we're going about this and how to make it better and how to make it more engaging and how to make it really serve the purpose that our organization is on campus for. So in terms of me, I would say at least with the KSU NAACP, and the work that we've done in this past year, we really wanted to focus on our pillars, and we really wanted to focus on just honoring the legacy that the NAACP has created for us and being around as the largest and oldest civil rights organization for 112 years. That's a lot of weight. So that's a lot of weight. And we wanted to make sure that in our time together and our presence on campus that we honor that and that we respect that and that we carry that legacy forward and that we're doing the work ultimately. And so, I mean, we've had events virtually and we've had events and things that we've done that are on Instagram Live. One thing that was important to me in this past school year is making sure that we invite local candidates for these elections out to come talk to students. As we're going to protests and we're really marching and making our hearts and our concerns known. It's important to follow up with that. Like, so who is our district attorney? Who is running for sheriff? Who is controlling these areas of our lives outside of the president, which is very important. But students know, like, hey, actually, we can like email them and ask them to come talk, and they have to answer. So accountability on a local level has been so important to me, and engagement, I think, for us has looked more external than internal in terms of advocacy. For our chapter, we have definitely in some efforts, I would say I'm also an ambassador for the Office of Diversity and Inclusion. And I'm here and involved in conversations that are about issues that are on campus. But especially with the weight of this last election, I wanted to make sure that we were responsible with our influence in our local city and registering people to vote, really kind of yelling at people as they're walking past the commons and so on and so forth. And so I really wanted to be sure with that we focus on problems that are happening at home, of course, but focus on the fact too, as well, that we have a responsibility for our local community. And so I would say that it's been a venture, a journey. It's something that we've had to work together on, something that we've partnered with organizations that y'all are seeing right here on. And I'm so grateful for y'all's help and just support in all of this electoral nonsense that has been happening, especially last year. And we're able to kind of coast into this year and get back to some of our main principles in our general body meetings and everything. But it's a learning thing. I don't think any of us really anticipated things to go the way that they did for as long as they did. And now we're like, oh, okay, we might be a little free, but a lot of us are graduating, so I can't host the next meeting in person. So it's kind of funny, but I think you all have done an excellent job of like maintaining and building on the spaces that you've inhabited and creating more room for students to feel welcome and to feel like they belong and to feel like ultimately even they can make a change. And I'm so proud of you all for that and grateful to be in this conversation with y'all. And to kind of like pivot the conversation, expound on it in terms of advocacy and being social justice oriented on campus. That's part of what we really wanted to touch on, especially in this conference through AADS, and what it means to be Black student leaders. Y'all, this is a little bit off of the question that we initially discussed, but I wanted to get your raw thoughts and touch on some of the things that Quincy was even saying. We know, like I mentioned before, being a Black student on the KSU campus is a whole set of challenges in itself. And we have things that we've had to overcome, that we're trying to overcome, issues in terms of policy, representation, and the list goes on and on, that we sometimes don't feel heard, and we sometimes don't feel as though this administration has been as welcoming as it could be. So I wanted to get y'all's thoughts, even as being a Black student leader on the KSU campus, honestly, and especially in your organizations. Do you feel as though, I'm trying to think of the best way to phrase this, the concerns that you have are being addressed? And if not, do you feel as though that there's a space that's safe for you to make this administration and our school aware of them? That was a lot. Sorry, y'all.
Madison, can you repeat that last part of the question? Because I don't know if it was everyone else, but like everybody went blank for a second, so I didn't hear or see anything for like a minute or so.
Can you guys hear me now? Okay, cool. I was saying essentially, just talking about your experience as a Black student leader on campus. Do you feel supported? How has that been, especially amid these difficult conversations that we're having to have so consistently? And do you feel as though there's a space for yourself as a leader in your organization to progress that conversation on campus?
I will definitely say that within the larger space of the university, this big system, there are many things that have not been addressed, right? And not particularly in reference to our experience as Caribbean Americans and that specific context, but being a Black student on campus, there are things that have gone on that we all know about, particularly with GroupMe, racism, microaggressions, things that have been promised and have not been delivered in regards to anti-racism centers and things of the like. So when we bring these things up to the larger administration, they're not addressed. We have spaces on campus to discuss these things. And I always want to make sure that anyone listening who may feel like their voices is not being listened to, there are people on campus who are there to support you in whatever capacity. So whether it's within the cultural and community centers, the LGBTQ Resource Center, international students in the Global Village, there are always people who understand what's going on, and the people who understand what it means to work within a bureaucracy that exists within a university. It's not a separate institution. We're still dealing with the government, folks. So it's not like we're in a separate sphere. But it sometimes is very difficult to say that, we are working hard to try to advance something, and the people who can make it happen don't. So we end up having to go lean on the support of faculty and staff who have been here for quite a while and will to continue, hopefully, to be in these spaces when we're out of this, undergrad or graduate school experience. But it's definitely difficult to want to advocate for these things that, it's going to be a little bit more difficult for the administration to see that this is something that students really, really want. But we, as leaders within these organizations, need to make sure that we're expanding the conversation to students that are part of the organizations to let them know that there are spaces on campus where you're able to feel comfortable and voice your concerns. Despite the administration not wanting to take action on them, you are still supported and the experience is valid. So just always want to make sure that everyone has those spaces within our clubs.
Yeah, just to piggyback off of what Artist was saying, I can agree with that. It almost feels like within certain faculty members, there's different hot spots of change, but then within the system, like you were saying, it's kind of just well, what'll happen if this person isn't here anymore? What'll happen if that person isn't here anymore? It's kind of just it puts so much pressure on people who really, we can only do so much, that it's it can get exhausting and it can make you feel a little bit discouraged. But then when it comes into looking at the student body and seeing other Black leaders on campus, that's something that does make me feel supported. That's something that does make me feel seen and heard, because I know that I'm not alone. Something that happened over the summer when the whole George Floyd situation happened is, our advisor, she helped coordinate us with other teachers who were interested about the same things that we were passionate about. We're an e-board made up of mostly Black students. And so we were able to talk about different things and just how they made us feel, and just the way that the world took on the whole George Floyd situation. It was so big. And I think that because it was so jarring, it wasn't until it got huge that the larger university system actually made some of the things that we kind of had been pressing since we were having smaller issues happen at the group me level, or it's not until it became a national issue that we really feel like the KSU administration really followed suit. But I think that part of being a leader is just knowing that, that's the way that these kind of systems work. The people who can make the biggest drastic changes like that, they're not necessarily going to be the ones to do it. It starts off at the grassroots, and it really has to do with being passionate about it and really making those ripples, kind of like Madison was saying. So yeah, I'm just glad to be in this panel amongst other student leaders who I can see myself reflected in, and who I know kind of have the same kind of, vision as I do when it comes to dealing with race issues on campus and having a Black experience. But yeah, it can get tough sometimes, but knowing that there's others who are like-minded, that's where you find the support for me. Yeah. Thank you.
I am going to completely agree with Linnea and Archie's here, in just that, when we're dealing with this huge school system, it's hard for us to find that support from our administration, from our advisors, even sometimes, because they do have to work along the lines of the school. They are extensions of the school, and if I'm me slightly being a cynic, but it's going to be hard for me to ever feel like this giant system, this giant schools or institution is going to have my best, in mind. I don't believe that, they're there to sometimes make it seem like they care with empty task forces. Sometimes they'll get together a group of people to say that, oh, we're going to make change, we're going to do something for you guys, and that's what they were doing. And that's what they did for us, was say that they were going to do something and leave it there. Like, agreeing with them, my inspiration, my support comes from other students. It comes from the other leaders here on campus that are ready and willing to get active. Over the summer when we had all the protests and stuff, that was not organized by our administration. The protest that we had here, where we walked downtown Kennesaw, that wasn't organized by President Whitten. She had nothing to do with that. She wouldn't have had her hands on that. That was organized by students here who cared. Students here who have been in these positions, and matter of fact, I think it was a Kennesaw alum who was actually the head of it, Devin Mann. Like, these are the people that I'm doing it for, and these are the people that I know have my back through this fight. Even my advisors, as much as they have been there to help out and support all my efforts here on campus, they're even still, they have to censor me to a degree, because that's what's keeping our organization alive and at our school. So there is always going to have to be a sense of censorship, and that's the unfortunate part when you're dealing with systems like that. But like everyone else is saying, it's these grassroots, it's these people, it's these students that's where the difference, that's where the support comes. And that to me is the most important thing, because none of it will be feasible without us.
Yeah, I totally agree. I literally have not much to say about that, but I don't think that we are supported like we should be. And I do feel like that's why I try to emphasize and really encourage my members and anyone else that I speak to just make sure that we support each other, because sometimes we get so caught up on the stress of trying to get people to care that just won't ever care, and not focus more on the people that actually do care, do want to put in work, do want to support. Eventually, once we accumulate enough people, like, we'll become loud enough to where they have to listen and like actually do something. So,
and to follow up on what everybody said, especially we heard about the Anti-Racist Center. Like, when you're met with hostility at every junction from the administration, especially about things that we know we've had plans that predate us specifically as students. These are things that we've been talking about for years and years and decades. And in order for us to continue to talk about them, there has to be a system in place that maintains the status quo. That system is the university, it is the administration. And I know KSU United, and I'm sure many other people, constantly met with hostility, disregard, disrespect at every turn. The reason we exist as Black activists is because we have to. They create spaces for us. As backwards as that may sound, you continue to show our student body certain levels of disrespect, you are going to have people that rise up and fight against it, we the people. And when we talk about entities and organizations and groups of people that make us feel safe, I agree, all 6 of us, are leaders of groups that do that. And in addition to that, we're speaking at an AADS conference. So I do think we have spaces that make us feel safe, but when it comes to the administration, like I keep bringing up the Anti-Racist Center. We spoke to a member of the administration regarding the Anti-Racist Center a few months ago, and we were told that those ideas had never been presented to them, which we know is not true. So to continually be met with this level of resistance is not shocking, because as abolitionists fighting against levels of supremacy, we know that there are going to be entities in place that maintain these systems because they wouldn't exist otherwise. And as much as we may love the university and the people on campus, that's what we're fighting against, you know? And we also talked about censorship, and one of the ways they do it is forcing us to censor ourselves. So if we don't censor ourselves, we won't have spaces like the AADS and AADS conferences to express our grievances. So I agree with everybody. It's a delicate balance, but no, I don't feel supported by the administration in any way, shape, or form.
And I think you ended on a perfect note in recognizing that it's important that these spaces are created for us to talk to each other, for us to express our grievances, for us to be able to talk about our experiences. And really, honestly, the purpose of this panel is to bring us together to talk about not just how we're able to have like a social safe space that's like fun for us to enjoy, which I think we've been able to create for our membership, but also a social justice and social advocacy space, and a coalition even of like-minded people, to, as we are having these experiences, to be able to say, hey, like, this is how I feel. Do you feel like that too? Okay, so how do we go about this? What are the action steps that we're taking as a collective of Black student leaders? Because I think in my time at KSU, and I've been here, like, I transferred in 2018. So, I mean, I haven't been here forever, but 3 years is enough. I think it's been interesting watching, being a advocacy-minded student, the different approaches to how we've handled or how we've had to deal with our concerns and the problems that we're seeing on our campus. And sometimes those approaches clash. Sometimes there is misunderstandings. Sometimes there are misunderstandings. Sometimes between different organizations, there are even disagreements on how we should protest this versus march to that, versus meeting with so-and-so for this versus she's never going to change. Why are we meeting with her in the first place? There's a lot of layers and complexities, and I think there's room in these conversations to acknowledge all of those feelings and see all of them as valid, and to see all of them even as approaches to figuring out how do we handle trauma. Like, we're living, honestly, in a constant stage of some sort of rage, and I'm going to say it in the words of Baldwin, of handling our Blackness in a predominantly white space that is complex. And how I handle it and how I feel is best, sometimes it's not how somebody else may do it. But there's room for conversation. And I think on our campus, that conversation between organization leaders has not always been as fluid as it could have been. And so what's important for me is that this conversation is solution oriented, that we are coming together not just to express our grievances and talk about the things that we've done separately, but that we pivot to really, what are we going to do together? How are we going to make sure that if we all have the same problem, but we don't really know how to go about it in a way that's like one accord, okay, let's talk about maybe how we can be solution oriented in this exact respect. Like, that's what's important to me. I think that's the purpose of this conference, and that's the purpose of this panel specifically as Black student leaders, that we are able to build coalitions and relationships, but beyond that, sometimes that word can feel like we're just charging to go do something, which is important. And I think that there's value in that and space for that conversation, but just relationship as well, for us to feel safe, and as though our voices are being heard, even amongst each other. Because as we've heard echoed over and over in this conversation, that the most change that we're going to see is going to happen when we say collectively on one accord, even in our approach, that this is what we want to happen differently. And so I want to, I know we're approaching probably like the 15-minute mark in this conversation. And we're still going to take questions, I believe, as well. But I want to end on the high note of we're here together for a reason. And how do we build on that? And any tensions or confusions that may have been in the past. Sorry, I'm reading comments as they're coming in. But any things, any grievances, any confusion, any tension that may have been in the past, I think we're all in a space of being willing to move forward for the greater good of our organizations and the greater good of the students that we represent, and being fully representative of their voices in one accord. And so I wanted to pivot to how can we work together? How can we come together as student leaders? And what are some of the ways that we can like build and support each other? I think this is, I'll kind of start because I sort of didn't answer the last question, but I'll spin it into this one just to give an example of what I'm thinking. Especially just in analyzing the different incidences we've seen on campus, whether that be through GroupMe, whether that be through just incidences in our classrooms, off-campus sites and student housing. Like there is a long list and we all know where it is and we all know exactly what's going on. But I think one of the most important steps we can take as student leaders is to, in building together, deciding first what our approach is so we can support each other in the best sense. So as we're having these issues that are coming up, if we're all going to march, okay, let's march and let's talk about what we're marching for. What are the exact demands? What are we making noise about? What are we advertising? So that's a part of the conversation, but there needs to be room for us to say in the beginning, hey, y'all, this just happened. What are we going to do about it? Let's talk about it. So I think that's the one thing that's on my mind of just like starting to build this synergy between us, and just coming together first, deciding what's going to happen, deciding what we think our best approach is, and everybody respecting that decision and moving forward. So what are some ways that you guys think we can work together as student leaders and build within our organizations collectively?
One of the things that I've thought of, and I've been thinking about this a lot for this semester, and just I know it sounds very bureaucratic tape, and I'm not trying to get to the real issue, but honestly, you know, and it sounds very just trying to do school events, but I think we need to do a lot more collabs just with each other and multiple club collabs. And the reason why I say that is because, you know, all of our members and all the people who join our organizations and clubs, like not everybody is interested and cares as much as, you know, the student leaders do. But that, once again, going back to the people, they're our, you know, that's our bread and butter right there. They're the ones who help make everything move and help, you know, push everything forward. So I think just being able to give our members, you know, the space to interact with, for DBG to have a space to interact with NAACP members, and for DBG to interact with Caribsa and Spanish Club and KS United. And we do, you know, we do a lot of events with LOD, and that's how, you know, LOD and DBG members, they're very close. Everyone from our organizations just kind of know each other because we always just do collab events and we go bowling together. But like, I think it does start at a let's just get to know each other and get to know each other's members, and, you know, what is this group of people like? What is that group of people like? And just have that fellowship between each other. Let's, you know, unfortunately, we can't do food anymore. You know, food used to always bring folks together. Any event that we had with food, everybody was coming out for that. But, you know, I think it's still important to really just like cherish the relationships that you know we were talking about earlier, and like let's just do something. Let's do an event together. Let's have a movie night together. I think it was DBG, NAACP, and LOD. We got some of our members together and we went to go see what's the name of the movie? I lost it. American Skin. We went to American Skin, and that was just, you know, it was good. It was a great movie. We ended up taking over the entire movie theater. Like for 20-30 minutes after the movie was over, we're sitting in the building having a conversation, just talking to each other about what our feelings are like. And I think that is extremely important. And, you know, that fellowship is extremely important in anything that we do moving forward. We gotta know each other. We gotta like each other. You know, before we can just start going out there and really taking on the world, we got to make sure, you know, we've taken care of ourselves, taking care of each other.
Yeah, I totally agree with what you're saying, Earl. Like, I think sometimes it's like when we just try to hurry up and do events that have these bold statements, it's hard to get people to mesh then, when it really should be like, okay, what about the smaller things? Like you said, like going to the movies, going bowling, things like that. Like, the movement is serious, but you also have to have that fun in there that's going to make it be like, okay, this is a bond. Like, this is people that I don't just hang out with when I'm trying to be super serious, but when I'm also trying to enjoy myself too. So collaboration is always going to be a great way to go. So yeah, I just really liked how you guys did the whole movie thing when you guys went to go see American Skin, and just the fact of like having that conversation, like, and opening up the doors to that is amazing. So
Yeah, I can agree. Y'all know I'm always down for a good collab. And yeah, American Skin was definitely yeah. Anyway, that was a really good movie. I really encourage everybody to watch it. We had great conversations. My emotions were all over the place. But yeah, I feel like with that, I totally agree, because sometimes like with events, like she was saying, you know, it's like you try to make this bold statement, and then it's kind of like you don't want to have to force on a conversation. And I feel like the best conversations about these issues that we're facing today, they happen, you know, more naturally, just bonding and just, you know, someone mentioning it. And, you know, like even yesterday we had our movie night, just, you know, kind of for Women's History Month, and we watched Hidden Figures, and, you know, conversations were happening, you know, we were pausing throughout the movie just to kind of like talk about, well, what would you have done? And, you know, what is everyone's major? Like, would y'all have, you know what I'm saying, you know, excelled during this time? You know, just like watching those women struggle, knowing that they were capable of doing the job 10 times better, and just having to be acknowledged for it, and just kind of like waiting their turn and standing up for themselves and stuff like that. Just conversations, those happen more naturally when they're not being asked forced. And they do happen a lot, you know, during bonding events. So yeah, collab, because I'm always for a collab.
And then I just have one more thing before I forget. I think another benefit of collaboration is that it lets the people who know, the members know, like, hey, you know, you can be a part of this too. You can organize this too. Because I think a struggle of a lot of leaders on campus is like, what's going to happen when I'm not here anymore? You know? And so when you facilitate that bond and everyone is like, hey, you know if I do this, I'm not 100% alone. Like, I kind of wish, you know, I was able to have more of that experience with the Spanish club before I started in it. I didn't really know anyone. One of my teachers just thought that I would be good at doing it, so she selected me. But I think had I had someone, you know, behind me encouraging me, if I had all those events to get excited about being a part of, if I knew, oh, well, if I don't know what to come up with, I can ask LOD what they're doing. I can ask NAACP what they're doing and come up with something to do. I think that it encourages people to really want to elevate to like, okay, well, I don't want to just be a member. Like, I can be the president of this club, or I can be this chair of the club. And that keeps the cycle going. That's how all of this grassroots movement grows into something bigger.
I want to jump off of what Linnea was just saying, and what everyone was talking about. Collabs are absolutely incredible. And, you know, like Earl was saying, food brings people together. I love to share my Caribbean food. I love to eat other food. So anytime food is prepared, I will be present and ready. But I also think that having informal collaborations and just showing up for each other, going to each other's meetings, you know, we all have these set times where we have space for our members to come and get to know us, but we're all together on this campus. So if we're having an event or something where it's open for people to be able to come, we can show up for each other and just make that informal connection in a space that's comfortable for us. So if we have, you know, a CRIPSA meeting and we invite people from ASA, or people from Caribbean Student Association will go to the International Student Association meeting, being within those spaces and making sure that we're having those informal connections makes it a lot easier to open up the conversation to say, let's have a larger event together where you're able to talk to leadership, you're able to talk to other members, and you're just able to make that connection at a very grassroots level. That to me has been very successful in the past, being able to go to different events and just talk to people without that formality of having to run the show or participate in it, just to be able to go and enjoy myself as a regular student and then to be able to build those connections from there. So that's been a really great opportunity. And within that, you're able to learn about what that group may need help advocating for. You're able to expand your network so that if you just happen to hear something in the streets and you're like, oh, this person really needs help with that, or this person was talking to me about that at the last LOD meeting, I can connect them with whatever they need. So making those informal connections is really strong and powerful too.
And
we'll hear from you, and then we're going to go into our audience questions. So you guys, who are watching, if you have any questions, go ahead and type them up and post them in the comments, and we'll address that after Quincy's answered. Didn't mean to cut you off, but go ahead.
No, you're good. Yeah, I agree with what everybody said. Collaboration is very important, but also I think one thing I also wanted to add, we should be able to just like chill with each other. Like we are living, not surviving. So I think sometimes as activists, we get into space where we're like, okay, we gotta, we gotta fight for this, we gotta fight for that. But especially Black people, and I think Madison, you mentioned all the trauma we go through. We should be able to just like chill with each other. Like that should be, that makes us better activists and better leaders, but it also makes us better people, better students. And it takes some of the pressure off. So yeah, that's another big thing, collabing with each other, but also, being able to be there for one another and being able to be comfortable because, we're college students, we're not soldiers. We should be able to, sometimes take a step back, be with people that make us feel comfortable and, be in our own communities and feel comfortable in that community, especially, we're not at an HBCU, so we don't always see people that look like us everywhere we go. So just the comfortability factor, that's something that I also think would be beneficial in terms of supporting each other.
So I think if I'm hearing everybody correctly, the theme that I'm recognizing is not picking a particular area in life to collaborate on, and like we get together for events, or we only get together to chill, or we only get together when there's a problem. It's if we recognize humanity for what it is, it's all the things in between that makes up an experience and makes a person who they are. And so being there for someone, being there for an organization, being there for other leaders, I think what we're learning in this conversation means all of the little things. It means the big things. It means the in-betweens. But it starts with relationship. And I think it starts with moments like these and taking the time to be like, okay, I'll do this panel. And let me hear what they have to say. And I think what's amazing that AADS is really forging and creating through this experience through my time with Dr. Vi. And what he's told me is a board of student leaders, Black student leaders, to be able to kind of build on this conversation, to have a space of really that we can be comfortable in, that we can meet regularly in, and that we can hear each other out and kind of build from. So this doesn't just stop right in this moment. And as we're all talking about what's to come, especially in transferring our power to new leadership as we're all graduating, it's important that we keep this momentum going. So I think you guys all said amazing things, and let's touch on these last few questions before we get going. Okay, so if I'm reading this correctly, initiatives that develop leaders. Okay, hold on, back. What initiatives, I think is what you're trying to, initiates. Okay, initiatives are being created to help instruct the minds of the youth. Initiatives that develop leaders in different areas of expertise. Okay. Does anybody in particular want to take that one, or I could start off if y'all want me to?
I can go ahead and take that. And just real quick to explain a little bit just about the idea of what DBG comes from. We're actually we're the group that's open to the public community, a part of we're basically a subgroup of the African American Male Initiative. which is a grant funded program that is aimed at making sure Black men in Georgia colleges are not just getting into college, but finishing and graduating through college. And one of our main pillars is through mentorship. So that's one of our biggest things in how we just kind of help develop our leaders. We actually have every year we have a 25 freshman ambassador cohort. And then we have 12 upperclassmen who basically mentor these guys into helping them become not just students, but not just become better students, but also become better leaders on campus. And a lot of our freshman guys, they tend to be a lot of big leaders on campus. I know from the past years that I've been a part of DBG, a lot of guys who came through the AMI program, they were all e-board members of the African American Student Association, presidents and vice presidents, e-board members of Distinguished Black Gentlemen as well. So that's one of our biggest goals is for AMI is to really cultivate leadership and success while in college and while at your college campus. So that's one of the big things that AMI does.
Okay, how can we boost morale in our organizations during the era of COVID and the issues we face with the administration? Ooh, that's a big one. How can we boost morale? Does anyone else want to take it? Should I take it?
I can jump in really quickly.
Okay.
Have something for people to do. So being able to say, we're here, we're doing things, making sure that you're reaching out to folks who need it. Who need that support, being there, being present, virtually there is still very important to be able to thrive. Like Quincy was saying earlier, we're in this space together. A lot of us have had a very, very tough year, but to be able to still have these spaces in our organizations to say, we're still here to celebrate us being who we are and to be able to be happy and continue through this college journey. It's important to just make sure that our members are aware that we're having these spaces.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And to piggyback off of it, I think sometimes we get into the mode as organizations of like, we need you students to help us accomplish A, B, or C, and not like, what can we do for y'all? Like, how are y'all feeling? What do y'all need from us? And I think that just like Artist was saying, holding space for people, especially in hard times, is going to be the thing that's going to make people feel like, okay, we're not just workers for this student organization, but we're valued members of a community. That's so important.
I think you touched on something great, both Artist and Linnea. To get to our next question, how do you resist against the pressures of respectability politics in your organizing? Ooh, there's a lot to say on that one. Quincy, did you want to take it? I saw you smile. Do you want me to hop on it first?
I want to answer, but you also said there was a lot, so I want to hear what you have to say.
That one's woo, that's really something. Especially, I think we all can relate to some degree of it's in student activism and organizing. There comes a point where you have to decide what's more important. Do you want to look good to the person who's above you? Or do you want to come across in a way, and exactly what respectability politics is saying, the phrase itself, that's respectable. But when you're dealing with in an administration, in a system, in an institution, in a government, gets bigger and bigger, that lacks respect for your humanity, it's hard to find those lines. And it's hard to, when you think about it, really, like, how do I respect a level of politics that doesn't respect me? And so it's complicated and it's difficult, but I think there's room within that, even that part of the conversation, for the space for speaking in a way in which you can be best heard. And that is a dynamic that I think deserves attention And there's also room for when nobody's listening and you got to bang and you got to knock a little harder and you got to make some noise and you got to hold your signs up. But I think there's, like I said before, I think different people have different ways of processing the trauma that they're experiencing and expressing and feeling comfortable. What is advocacy and activism to them. And I think what we all can do is our best at respecting what that looks like for individual students, for organizations, and those efforts as well, try and work together. So it's complicated, but I see the layers, and I think all of them are worth acknowledging, to be honest. But go ahead, Quincy.
Yeah, just real quick to follow up on what you said. I wholeheartedly agree with everything you said. And yeah, I do think like there are layers. And I think one thing that helps with that when we talk about collaboration, different people and organizations are in different positions and can play different roles within a movement. So sometimes you have some organizations and some people and some leaders that can do things that others can't, or that are willing to do things one way that another organization may say, okay, well, we're going to take it a different route, you know? And I think occupying different spaces within a movement, whether it's, you know, on different ends of the radicalism spectrum, I think that's important. So, you know, maybe don't always maybe accept differences in terms of how people organize and how people you know, revolt against the system or whatever. So, yeah, I just think that basically my answer to the question is people can play different roles and just do what you're capable of doing while also pushing the envelope in a way that's comfortable for the movement.
Yeah. I think something that we really touched on in Spanish Club, especially with the conversation that we had with a lot of teachers at the height of the George Floyd situation, is within our group, just coming as your most authentic self. You know, if you don't have space in your group to be transparent, to be authentic, to be yourself, then you're not going to get out there and get in an arena of bigger players and do that. Mm-hmm. So I think having that space to foster that is important, and then showing people support and trying to understand, like, okay, why is there even respectability politics around this issue? One thing that I had to confront is just like, I can definitely get out there, sound super professional, and, you know, speak in my most proper voice if I want to. But there's also a side of me that isn't like that. And so I had to kind of push my comfortability zone as a leader to just be like, some of these issues I can't have organized rage. Like, you know, I can't show exactly how I'm feeling trying to sound just like you and be like you, because this is my experience, which you don't experience the way that I do. So I think that making space to show up and be authentic is the best way to make room to do it on a larger scale. So
I want to agree with everyone that's spoken already, and okay, I'm gonna make this quick because I see we have to wrap this up. But I just want to say, honestly, I love having so many sides, so many people on the spectrum of activism and radicalism. Because honestly, KS United, I love you guys. You guys are the hardcore door knocker. Don't even knock the door; y'all will kick it in. Okay, I freaking love that. NAACP, and you guys have always been extreme. You guys are the organizers. You guys are the ones who know how to handle, who know how to really handle these, like, some of the big conversations, and be able to have the ear of administration very well. And, you know, I really just think this is a part of what blackness is. Blackness is everywhere on the spectrum. And activism is everywhere on the spectrum. And I think, like everyone's been saying, there's room for all of it, and we need it. We need all of it, and we need to all work together to just know how to find our role, play our role, and let's actually make that change.
Thank you, Earl. Thank you, Quincy. Thank you, Linnea. Thank you, Amy. Thank you, artists. Let's not stop here, y'all. Let's continue with this board. And to those who are following and watching, please consider a minor or a major in AADS, which is African and African Diaspora Studies. It's an amazing program. It provided us this platform. And I appreciate y'all's time tonight. And I am so excited to even continue. I don't want it to stop, y'all. So I hope y'all have a great evening. And this was so much fun. Thank you again.